everyone, I'm Christine, and I believe by now a lot of you have heard about Tengah Garden Residences that's actually launching as low as EC prices. So the starting price for Tengah Gardens is as low as 1779 PSF. And a lot of buyers I speak to are asking me, is this a real good price to enter in? Is this a safe price? What is my exit strategy? And where are the buyers that's going to buy from me considering Tengah Gardens being such a ulu place? And especially, will there be an oversupply with all the ECs surrounding it? And as we have said before, it's easy to buy, but how about selling? So today, I'm actually going to share with you the exit strategy for Tengah Gardens if you were to buy, as well as how to identify the sweet spot, and finally, the floor comparison. So first of all, we need to understand why Tengah Garden is priced so cheap. Because Tengah Garden is actually Singapore's newest township, a fully planned forest town with about 42,000 homes coming up. And in fact, right now over there, there's actually a lot of BTOs and EC. So when the government actually bring in a new township, they will actually build a lot of infrastructure such as MRT, school, amenities such as coffee shops, supermarkets, or even shopping mall. So where exactly is Tengah Gardens? Let's take a look at the location. So over here, you can actually see that Tengah Gardens is actually located right next to Hong Kong MRT. And opposite is actually a hospital. And if you to actually drive to this side, there's actually a school that was actually building. And all around Tengah Gardens, you can see there's actually a lot of BTO already, which is all the purple color. So in fact, right now in Tengah itself, there's actually a lot of BTOs. Currently, right now, there's actually only ECs that's actually around it. So it is actually not a very ulu place that we initially felt. It is actually an area where there's a lot of BTO as well as EC. So if you remember many years ago in Punggol, it was actually very similar where you have a lot of BTO and some ECs. And then following with condos. So Tengah Gardens will be actually the first mixed development condo in Tengah. So I would say this is actually going to be really exciting. In fact, probably one of the cheapest new launch in 2026. But let's take a look at the connectivity. So Hong Kong is actually a Jurong region line. So over there, you can actually take the MRT one stop to Tengah Central, as well as 4 stops to Boon Lay Interchange. And it's about 6 stops to the new Jurong East Integrated Transport Hub. Because it's actually a new township, so definitely the government will bring in schools over there, and we already have Pioneer Primary School, Rulang, as well as even ACS is moving into Tengah area. Already a few primary schools within 1 to 2 kilometers. This is actually some perspective of Tengah Gardens, which some of the units are actually facing the river and some units are actually facing the MRT or the hospital. This is some information about Tengah Garden Residences, which I think you can really find online, but let me go through quickly. So it's actually made out of 9 blocks, and there's actually 16-story and 1 level on the commercial as well as the basement car park. And there's actually a sheltered link right all the way to Hong Kong MRT. So if you can actually take a look, the car park lots is about 216, but not so much to worry because most of the project nowadays is probably about 50 to 60% car park lot. And for most of the new projects nowadays, especially those near MRT, the lots allocation is about this range. And if you actually were to look at the unit mix in Tengah Gardens, it's actually a large number that is actually 2-bedroom. And many owners most likely buying here will be because of the MRT and the convenience. So high chance a lot of them might not be driving. Tengah Gardens developer is actually by Hong Leong as well as Glauco. They have actually done a lot of projects over the years. This is actually the units breakdown of Tengah Gardens. As you can see over here, we only have about 6 units of 1 bedroom, but almost 337 units for the 2 bedroom, which make up of almost 40%. And the 3 bedroom of about 40%, and finally the 4 bedroom. So for customers who's actually looking for the smaller units like the 2 bedroom for investment or for stay, they will be wondering, wow, there's actually quite a large number of 2 bedrooms here. Will it be easier for me to exit when I actually want to sell, or will there be a lot of competition? So over the past few years, you realize that the 2 bedrooms actually sell very well at the new launch because a lot of them are investors or first-time buyer. And the quantum for the 2 bedroom in the new launch are actually much more lower. Starting price usually are very much more attractive and a lower quantum for them to actually digest. So for a resale 2 bedroom is a totally different ballgame because a lot of them will be buying for own stay. Most of the buyers will be actually probably HDB upgraders, so they will be actually looking a lot more on the space and the livability. And with that, right, the market will actually be a little bit smaller. Maybe some will also buy for investment, but higher chance for resale buyers, a lot of them are buying for own stay. So most likely they will look around most of the resale over there before they decide on a unit. So the question is, if I were to buy a 2-bedroom in Tengah Gardens with such a high supply, is it very difficult for me to sell in future? So I'm going to actually bring you to actually an area that's very similar to Tengah Gardens, which is actually the old Punggol. So in Punggol area, we actually has a lot of EC like Privé, Water Bay, Terrace, River Park, Amore, and we only have this condo which is River Isle. Why do I want to bring this case as a comparison? Because this is actually very similar to Tengah, where it's actually surrounded by a lot of EC, and Tengah is actually just like River Isle, which is one of the condo nearby. So let's take a look at how the small units that are 1-bedroom and 2-bedrooms in River Isle perform. You can see over here, most of the EC don't have a 1-bedroom. They are actually all starting from a 2, 3 or 4-bedroom. In fact, the 2-bedroom units are actually very limited. So River Isle only have about 15 units over there. And if there's buyers who's actually looking for a 1-bedroom for investment or a 1-bedroom for stay, they will actually look at River Isle. Let's take a look at what is the performance for the 1-bedroom over there. You can see for the profit for a 1-bedroom in River Isle is actually at least about 120,000, which is relatively very attractive. And why is that so? That's because the supply over there is actually very limited. So this means that if you were to actually buy units over there that's actually very limited supply, there's still a very high chance for you to actually make good profits. So if you were to buy a 2-bedroom in Tengah Gardens for investment or for own stay, I think it's still relatively quite safe, similar to River Isle, because there is not much supply of 2-bedroom over there. Most of the EC around Tengah Gardens actually start from a 3-bedroom. So after we talk about the supply, let's talk about the demand. Who will be the buyers that will actually buy a 2-bedroom in Tengah Gardens? So you can see over here, we pull out some data that we actually do a research on. The 3-room BTO nearby Tengah is actually going to be MOP soon. So they're actually going to MOP relatively in different years. 2028 about 606 units, 2029 400 units plus, and 2030 about 260 plus units. So a total of about 1,289 units of 3-room HDB that will MOP in 2030. And why do I take the MOP until 2030? Because for Tengah Gardens, your SSD will be over in 2030. So this will potentially be your upgraders who will look at your 2-bedroom here. So let's just assume that maybe not all will upgrade, but maybe a good 30% is going to upgrade. So they will probably be the buyers that will come in to look at the 2-bedrooms over here. There's about 386 households, and we have about 337 units. So can I say there will be a good chance of upgraders that might buy 2-bedrooms in Tengah Gardens? Not forgetting the potential investor that will come in to invest a 2-bedroom here with the potential of renting out to tenants working in Jurong Innovation District as well as the Tuas Hub. So high chance for my 2-bedroom buyers, they could be actually my potential BTO upgraders from a 3-room HDB, or even a young couples or investors. They are usually probably a little bit more motivated by the smaller quantum, and they also focus on the rental yield and the entry price. So the 2-bedroom buyers exit strategy will be to actually sell it before the new launch actually starts. So for the 3 and 4 bedroom, it's actually very different because 3 and 4 bedroom are mainly HDB upgraders. So they are very motivated by the space, the livability, and they focus a lot about the school as well as the lifestyle. So for 3 and 4 bedroom buyers, when you actually exit, you have to be very strategic. You need to avoid selling when the EC just MOP because that's when the supply peaks. So the timing is actually very, very important for your exit strategy. So how do we make it even safer? It's not just buying cheap, it's actually buying at a sweet spot price, choosing the right unit type and stack. And when you do both, even the competition comes, I think we are still very well protected. If you actually look at my previous video, you realize that we need to actually identify the unique selling point of the project. And if you could actually buy into the unique selling point, which is the convenience for Tengah Garden Residences at a very low premium, there's actually a very maximum upside potential. Or if you actually were to actually buy in a strong USP with high premium, it is still attractive, but there's very limited upside. And how the developer usually do their pricing strategy is actually through this 3 steps that I also shared in my previous video. So the 3 main strategies is per floor jump, unit type, and the facing. And if you were to look at how Hong Leong and Glencoe Land has been actually doing their project, high chance per floor jump will not be too much loaded. because it's also not very high story. The unit type strategy, if you actually look at the site plan, you realize that most of the bigger units have very good layout, which actually caters a lot to family upgraders, and is actually very appealing to those who actually buy for own stay, especially for Tengah area where most of the owners are buying for own stay. And lastly will be actually the facing view premium strategy. There are actually some units that are actually facing the pond, which is a little bit more unblocked. So high chance we believe that the developer will be actually doing a lot of loading over there. So this is actually the site plan for Tengah Gardens, and we need to identify where is the sweet spot. Like I mentioned, the unique selling point for Tengah Gardens will be actually the convenience, which is near the MRT. So the MRT is actually over here, and there's actually a link to the MRT. And over here is actually facing the hospital, and over here will be actually facing the river or the pond. So where's the sweet spot? I would say the sweet spot will be actually units that is over here, here, as well as here, because they will be actually very near to the MRT, which is convenience, but yet high chance you'll not be paying a premium because they're actually facing the MRT. So the developer will also see that these are the units that maybe some customers might not be too keen, and they probably will not be doing a lot of loading on it. And if you were to buy it, you'll be buying it into the convenience but not paying the premium. So I think this is actually where the sweet spots will happen. Then, like I mentioned earlier, the developer most likely will actually do the premium loading onto the river or the pond facing. And these are actually the bigger units, like the 4 bedrooms. So for customers who's actually looking at the sweet spot units, they will be actually facing the MRT, and we just have to be very mindful about the level or the height. So for the MRT, high chance we here say that it will actually be probably about level 8. So for units that is actually above level 8, high chance you will actually not be looking into the MRT track, maybe having an unblocked view. So any units that is actually 4th to 7th floor will be actually the sweet spot where you actually will not be paying the premium but getting convenience that is near to the MRT. From 8th floor to 16th floor, very high chance you will not be seeing the MRT track open view, but definitely I think the loading will be actually on 8th floor onwards. And my recommendation will really be on the 4th floor to the 7th floor, because that will actually be an area where the noise probably is still sustainable and you will not be paying a premium. And any units that's below the 4th floor, you'll probably be blocked by the MRT track or the pillar, and it can also be a very dark unit. So my recommendation will be actually 4th to 7th floor. Identify and buying sweet spot has already win us half a battle, but the next one will be actually how to time our exit. We have to be very careful about our exit timing, especially if you're owning a 3 or 4 bedroom. Because over there, right, there's actually a lot of ECs such as Coupon, Otura, and many. They are also having a lot of good layouts of 3 and 4 bedroom. So if you want to sell your bigger units such as 3 or 4 bedroom, we have to be very careful about the MOP of the EC. So over here, I actually just take 3 EC that's going to MOP in 2030 to 2031, because this is where Tengah Gardens SSD happens. Tengah Garden SSD will happen about 2030, and this is the time where Coupon also MOP. So if you were to actually sell it, I would really advise us to time it properly. We should actually most likely sell it before Coupon MOP if we can, depending on our SSD, or we will actually sell it after the MOP, so that the supply will be actually much more lesser. And with lesser supply, right, can I say there will be a higher chance for us to sell our unit at a better price? And we also want to avoid selling in 2031 where there's actually much MOP units coming up in Otura as well as Lumina Grand. So we have to be very careful in planning our exit timing. This is the estimated timeline that I planned if you consider to sell Tengah Gardens, because Tengah Gardens SSD, like I mentioned, 2030, and this is where most of the EC supplies come in, and we actually need to sell it before it enters or when there's actually more supply. And we also have to be very mindful about the new potential private supply. We also want to avoid this time where there will be a lot of supply coming in. So in summary, we actually need to identify and buy into the sweet spots without paying the premium, and we also need to plan our exit timing carefully. Next, we go into the floor plan comparisons. I believe a lot of you have actually seen the floor plans online or even on the e-brochure, but I'll just run through very quickly on the floor plans and what are the things to look out for. We actually have the 1 bedroom over here, which is only about 6 units. Very typical 1 bedroom layout, so I shall not go too much into the floor plan. Next, we go to the 2 bedrooms layout. So this is actually our first 2 bedroom layout, which is the 2 bed 1 bath. This is actually a dumbbell unit, so very efficient layout. And as compared to the other 2 bedrooms premium, so for the 2 bedroom premium is actually 2 bedroom, 2 bath with a dumbbell layout. And the difference for 2B and 2C, right, actually is only the living room. So the living room for 2C is slightly a little bit bigger. But other than that, all the bedroom size and kitchen is the same. Next is actually our 2+ study. So the 2+ study is very similar to the 2 bedroom, just that we have actually an additional study here. It's pretty cool because you actually have a Jack and Jill kind of a bathroom over here. So my take for the 2 bedroom will be actually 2B, which is a dumbbell layout with 2 bedroom, 2 bath. And the units over here will be actually near the MRT, but high chance you won't be actually paying the premium. Next is actually the 3 bedroom. The 3 bedroom actually has a lot of layouts. I'll start from the smaller 3 bedroom. So for the 3 bedroom, we have a very compact 3 bedroom of 74 square meter, which doesn't actually have any windows in the kitchen. As compared to the other 3 bedroom compact, there's actually windows in the kitchen as well as windows in the bathroom. And if you were to compare 3B and 3C, the difference is actually the walkway. So 3B, the walkway actually is quite straightforward, whereas 3C, there is just a little bit of like a foyer, a little bit of a privacy. And the rest of the bedrooms actually is more or less the same. So for customers who is actually probably looking for a 3 bedroom but have a little bit of a budget constraint, I will really encourage us to look at either 3B or 3C. Having windows in the kitchen as well as the bathroom, I think is actually very crucial or very important, especially for upgraders in Tengah Gardens area. Next, we look at 3 bedrooms premium with store. We have actually 3D, which is actually our bedroom with store. So the store actually is along the walkway, which is actually quite interesting. This store could really potentially help you to put your stuff, such as your luggage and your things. But if you actually want it to convert into like a piano room or even like a wine chiller area, it can be actually kind of closed up. So this store will be actually very interesting for those who want to have an extra space or extra room. Next, we compare with 3E and 3F. So the difference between 3E and 3F is actually the walkway over here. So for 3E, right, you can see that when you actually walk in, you don't really see the unit straight away. So some people might like it because of the privacy. Versus 3F, when you walk in straight away, you can actually see the living and the dining, which is the activities. Another thing to take note is 3E, right, the bomb shelter is actually at a kitchen. So this is probably very good for those who actually have a helper, where the helper will be actually doing their activities, resting in the kitchen area. Versus 3F, the bomb shelter is actually outside. So this bomb shelter will probably be really acting as a storage. Those who actually have a helper might appreciate 3E more. And then we also have 3 bedroom premium where there's actually a yard. Most of them, their layout is very, very similar. But you can actually see for 3G, right? The master bedroom actually is about 70 square meter versus 3H and 3I very similar, which the walk-in, you don't see the living room directly, so there's some privacy for 3H and 3I. And the best part is that over here, right, you realize that the master bedroom is actually bigger. It's much more spacious with walk-in wardrobe. Over here, there's also a window, so your walk-in wardrobe area will not be very dim. Same for 3I, we actually have a walk-in wardrobe and a window over here. And if you actually take a closer look at the size, right, it's 93 versus 94. It's about 1 square meter difference. That's about probably 20 square feet at most. And if you actually base on 2000 PSF, right, you'll probably be topping up about maybe 40k more, but you actually get a walk-in wardrobe. For the customers in Tengah Gardens, high chance they will be upgraders, so they will really be looking at the livability. And when it actually comes to resale, right, when you actually go in, you will feel that the master bedroom will be much more spacious. And most importantly, right, you will only be topping up 40k more, which actually gives you much more value rather than paying like 100k more just for the walk-in wardrobe. So for such a small premium top-up, I think it will actually appeal more or even a lot when it actually comes to resale. Then for the other two 3-bedroom premium 3J and 3K is mainly the walk-in entrance and a slightly bigger living area. Lastly, let's move on to our 4 bedrooms. We actually have a few 4 bedrooms layout. So we have a 4 bedroom with yard starting from 1130 square feet. So with harmonization, the developer is able to make a real proper 4 bedroom at a good size of 1130 square feet. The layout for 4 bedroom 4A to 4D actually have not much difference, only the door facing. That means the moment when you actually open the door, do you actually see the living room straight away like 4D, or do you actually have a little bit of a privacy? Other than that, I would say the 4-bedroom over here, you just have to take note when you buy, is there actually a loading on the stack that you are buying? Because like we mentioned, high chance the developer will load units that's actually facing the pond or the river. The premium that you're paying, will there be buyers that is willing to pay when it comes to resale? So we also have to be very mindful by the time your ballot number is called, the premium that you're paying, is it actually justifiable with the view? If you can actually get low floor with the pond facing versus high floor that's internal facing, the price is almost the same. Likelihood, I will encourage you to look at the 4-bedroom with actually the unblocked view facing the pond, because this is where people will appreciate the unblocked view, but you don't pay for the premium. Lastly, we move on to the 4-bedroom premium. So the 4-bedroom premium is the size of 1249 square feet, and we have layout 4E and 4F. They're basically quite similar. The difference again is only on the walk-in from the main entrance, whether you want to have a little bit of a privacy or do you want to see the kitchen straight away. The difference between this one versus the earlier 4-bedroom is actually really the additional bathroom. The rest is actually quite similar. If you actually look at the additional size, right, it's about 100 square feet. Looking at the premium that you're going to pay just for this bathroom, high chance you might be paying easily about 200,000 more, because 2,000 PSF, probably you'll be paying 200k more. And when it comes to resale in future, a lot of customers want to feel the size that they're buying and the price that they're buying, is it justifiable? And if they actually enter a unit and they do not feel that they are actually getting a bigger size, they might not be willing to pay this additional 200k. Having said that, there might be some buyers or some families that really need like 4 bathroom, then this kind of layout 4E and 4F will appeal to them. But generally, if let's say we are talking about families that want real livability, value for money, as well as not paying a high premium for it, my take will be actually our 4-bedroom with yard. And if you're considering Tengah Gardens or any other projects, I can walk you through which stacks are actually the sweet spot, which units to avoid, and your exit strategy before you commit. No obligation, just clarity before you decide. Once again, I'm Christine and see ya.